It's time, my friends, for another Devo tip on God's staff team. We're going to look at Daniel chapter 7, where the court is in session. God's staff team is a fascinating study, isn't it? There's cherubim and the council of seraphim and innumerable angels. So let's look at Daniel 7 and see what happens in this court session in heaven. Daniel says, "As I looked, thrones were placed, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His clothing was white as snow, and the hair of his head like pure wool. His throne was fiery flames. Its wheels were burning fire." That's the cherubim. "And 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him." I couldn't get that all on my slide. But then notice, the court sat in judgment, and the books were opened. This is Daniel chapter 7, verses 9 and 10. Thrones were set up in the court of heaven, along with the angels around an all-powerful, sovereign, Ancient of Days. The court is called to order to render judgment, and a verdict is about to be announced. Wow, this is better than binging on a season of The Lincoln Lawyer. Well, then suddenly, one like the Son of Man arrives, riding the glory cloud, and he came to the Ancient of Days and was presented before him in a resurrected body that still bore the marks of nails and a spear on his body. Hooray, it's Jesus! And to him, Daniel says, was given dominion and glory and a kingdom that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which shall not pass away, and his kingdom one that shall not be destroyed. So when Jesus ascended to heaven, God gave him a seat at his right hand in the heavenly places, far above all rule and authority and power and dominion, and above every name that is named, not only in this age, but also in the one to come. Ephesians 1. The verdict would set things right. And amazingly, the Apostle John actually got to see what happened next. So while the court of heaven was still in session, the risen King Jesus rightfully holds the earth's title deed, a scroll, and takes responsibility to cleanse the cosmos of evil in preparation for the new earth. For by him, that is Jesus, all things were created, in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities. All things were created through him and for him in the first place. Well, one fine day, Jesus will return, and the court will sit in judgment again. And the kingdom and the dominion and the greatness of the kingdoms under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High. Their kingdom shall be an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey them. Yes, that's the way God had intended it to be all along. Well, what can we learn from all this? Number one, King Jesus is just like his Father. He's not a dictator. Number two, King Jesus is a loving, relational covenant Lord who shares his rule. I'm going to read Revelation 3:21, and it's just way too stupendous, but I'm going to read it anyways. Jesus says, "The one who conquers, I will grant him to sit with me on my throne, as I also conquered and sat down with my Father on his throne." What a plan. What a verdict. Tune in next week for another Devo tip on God's staff team.